This week on Catch Some Soulshine, I am with Julie Alasker. Ironically, or maybe not, we are both co-authors in Radical Freedom. I am so excited to talk to you. She is a genetics specialist and a holistic practitioner, and she coaches people to a better way of healthy, healing living. So I would like you to expand upon that a little bit. Talk about, what do you mean genetics? How do people figure that out? And how does that play in our health and well-being?
Thank you. I appreciate that question. And thank you for having me on the podcast. My mission in life is to implore people to get their genes tested. And that is because when you get your genes tested, you have your DNA, you know which genes you have, and every gene, think of it like a city where it has houses all over. Those are SNPs. I'm not going to go into all the science, but a single house SNP being different than what it should be, being a variant, can have substantial influence on how you think, how you experience emotions, how your body deals with stress, how it detoxifies. A lot of times it'll require many variations to have an impact, but sometimes there's just one and it has a big impact. And so you might go around all day long feeling tired. And you're doing everything right. You're eating perfectly. You're avoiding toxins. You're a positive person, yet you're exhausted. And then you start to feel bad about yourself. And this is my probably core reason for wanting people to have their genes tested. They're feeling like they're failing because somebody else is doing the same things and having results and they're not, but they don't understand that it's how they're made. And so when we have that information, when we get the reports, and you can get a short report from one company or you can get a huge report from other companies, when you get that information, for me, with an MTHFR variant, I don't methylate B vitamins properly. Well, now that I know that, I take methylated B vitamins. So instead of having 30% access to my energy, I have tons of energy. No amount of perfect eating or anything would have made that happen. I had to know that my gene didn't function the way that other people's genes function. So that's what I do. I get the information and I make it applicable to their healing journey, whether they're near death or whether they're an exceptionally healthy person that just wants to stay there and they want to know the long-term impact of genetic variants in their life.
I am also a science geek. I'm a nurse practitioner. Within the last maybe 10 years, and I'm sure it's been around a lot longer, I started getting more and more information about genetic testing for which antidepressant, anti-anxiety meds work for somebody. It's huge because, and we still do this in the medical practice. We'll try a med. You got to give it 6 weeks.
Yep.
And if it works, great. Might need to tweak it a little bit, but if it doesn't, you start all over again.
Yeah.
So I find the genetic testing really awesome. But the one thing that I understand to be true with the medical testing for the antidepressants is most insurances pay for it once in a lifetime. Is that true?
I can't speak to insurance because I don't work with insurance companies. They don't cover holistic practitioners. I can speak to what I've seen out there, which first and foremost, your genes, in theory, the science as we know it, don't change unless there is a very traumatic event. Then sometimes they can mark changes in genetics. But in general, unless you have a severely traumatic experience, you don't need to retest that gene because that gene isn't going to change.
Right.
So if your body doesn't methylate, or if you have a GSTM1 double deletion, which impacts your detoxification, you don't have that gene. No amount of extra testing is going to give you that gene, as we know the science at this time. So testing for it one time, reasonable. The thing that I find disappointing is that they'll test for 1 or 2 genes or 10 genes, when the impact, the research has grown so much that we know confidently that there's more impact being had by more genes, and we're holistic beings.
Mm-hmm.
Every gene affects every other gene and how it functions. So when we get all the information available to us, which costs about the same as just getting that handful, the cost isn't that much difference. Why not get all the information and then disseminate it as needed? But then we can take it all into account. And I think insurance companies are moving closer to that. I know a lot of HSA companies cover several different DNA kits if you want to go and do it on your own. But
Okay.
at least, like, I know 3x4, I believe 23andMe, DNA Life, all of those except HSAs. So then you can get
Right.
control of that information, even if you don't have a practitioner to help you through it.
That is awesome. I suppose if they wanted to get retested, they could pay for it again later in life for somebody that has experienced a lot of PTSD or perhaps addiction or something
Mhm.
like that. Because I always tell people when I'm helping them in the medical field, there are so many paths to recovery,
Yeah.
and what works for one does not work for another because we're all individual beings, and sometimes you have to just do what works for you.
Yes.
So when I talk to them, I'll say, okay, so what are you doing for your recovery? And some people say, I love gardening. Gardening is my therapy. Some people say, I love meetings. Meetings are my therapy. Some people say, I love doing art and crafts and singing, or I spend time with my kids. It's different for every single person. And I love the fact that you recognize that with the DNA testing because I'm a big science geek. And a lot of times, not that, getting the results isn't proof, but sometimes we just need that proof.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
okay, this is true. This is the proof. I love that you do that. So once you get the DNA testing with the person, how do you go about shifting that? Is it like shifting beliefs? Because I'm a big one in that. Our beliefs shift our reality,
Yes.
right? We know this to be true.
Yep.
We know it's positive. Like if I get up in the morning and I say, what a great day. I'm so happy to be alive. I get to go to work today. I get to have this podcast. I am so lucky.
Yep.
My day is great.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if I get up and I say, oh my gosh, I overslept. I'm so tired. I can't make it through the day. That's how my day's going to go.
Absolutely. 100%. So my approach, I don't know a lot of people I'm a traditional naturopath. So traditional wisdom, I'm not a naturopathic doctor. I'm not a licensed medical. Now I did work as an interpreter in medicine for 20 years as a sign language interpreter. So if you see my hands going, that's usually why. And so I was in thousands of appointments. I have a lot of experience in the medical world and knowledge of it, but not like a nurse or a doctor where you go in and run the appointment. I just understand how you run the appointment.
Yeah.
And so I tried to apply that with the approach being biology, belief, behavior. We have what we have to work with, and
Mm.
that we need that information. But then our beliefs dictate our behavior. So you have the two things. You have, and a beautiful thing that I had read recently was about a Harvard study they did where they brought in a group of men that were in their 70s, and they said, act like you are 22 years younger. And
I
they put
read
all
that
the,
too.
wasn't that beautiful? They put up posters from that era, and they came in with walkers and canes, and they were playing touch football by the end. They measured their extremities and they actually grew because they're curled from arthritis. The arthritis went away because they acted, because our beliefs dictate our behaviors, and our belief changes how our genetic expression. So epigenetics above the gene, you might have a great gene that can do a wild amount of healing for you, but that doesn't mean that it's actually activated. So, what activates that gene? There's not consensus on all of that. But what we do know is that when you avoid ultra processed foods, when you avoid toxicity, when you have a positive framework, and I get to do this podcast, not I have to do the podcast, when you have that in place, healing happens innate. This
Mhm.
isn't I cure my clients. It is bodies have the amazing ability for innate healing, and our mind is a critical piece of that. And as you talk about addiction, I love that because I collaborate with a group that works with sugar addiction. And this
Mhm.
is a legitimate thing
Oh,
where
yeah.
refined sugar is not good for our body. There's over 8,000 studies with 52 physiological mechanisms that are impacted by consuming refined sugar. I'm all about the fruit and honey and organic maple syrup. But one person will be able to work hard and quit their sugar addiction, and another person puts forth the same effort and they are not able to overcome that addiction. And I just posted on this today, person A and person B, well, you just need to work harder. You just need to exercise more. You should, and add that should shame sentence, right,
Yes.
onto that person, when in fact, this person, maybe they have a COMT-AALL and their neurochemicals are not metabolizing as fast as your neurochemicals. And so when they're struggling with something, they are struggling with it for a physiologically longer period of time. When we have our emotions in our body, because feel any emotion, it's physical, they're not getting over it as fast as you are physiologically. So you can't go, oh, it's easy to overcome addiction if you're not a person with addictive biomarkers. It's not a fair statement. We're all so unique that we have to approach each problem with uniqueness.
I love that, and I read the book by Alan Carr, and it
Yes.
was specifically about sugar addiction because yeah.
Everybody, it's our country.
Yeah. And, I'm really making a conscious effort and decision to try and I'm not eliminating it all 100%. I'm just, being honest, but I'm trying to make healthier choices and, eat natural sugars like you talk about. Not
Yeah.
if I don't have it in the house, I don't eat it. So, my granddaughter, I made her protein pancakes with a little bit of maple syrup this
Love
morning,
it.
and she loves them. She
Yeah.
doesn't know the difference.
Yep.
So it's just little changes like that that I think can make a huge difference. But one thing you talked about was, different biomarkers make people a little bit different, and it's harder for person A than it is for person B. So, what are some things that like person A can do to get to the same playing field as person B?
Well, and that's where you get your genetics, right? So I know my genetics are not good, right? My story is that I was a sickly child. I almost died one time of pneumonia, but other than that one time, I wasn't severely ill. I just was always either injured or kind of sick, and I missed a lot of school. So just never great. And that was my diagnosis is, well, she's just always going to be sickly. And that was after a dozen doctors. Um, Fortunately, I came across a crazy natural lady, is what we called her. And she gave me supplements and things that she was able to, through her intuition, do. People don't always want to lean into intuition, they need black and white. And that's where, and I always couple blood work, functional blood analysis with the genetics, because your genetics show me what we have to work with, and your functional blood analysis shows me what your lifestyle choices, where that's left your body at this point, and then we figure out what to do about it. So when we get the genetics, like I always say crappy genetics, and I'm like, thanks, mom and dad. I
Mhm.
know that my transportation protein for vitamin D is as lousy as they come. I know that my methylation is as lousy as they come. I know that I have cardiac issues, and I have a high aptitude for peripheral neuropathy in my older ages. So I can look at, and that's just scratching the surface. I supplement now. I either eat or supplement with uh, the mineral. It's not just supplementation; it's substances. Whatever substance, whether it's a mineral, vitamin, whatever it is that my body doesn't produce, I give it to my body, and I just incorporate it into my food budget. It's part of the food that my body requires to overcome the gaps that this other person doesn't have.
Right.
Now, just because they don't express things as early in life doesn't mean it's not going to catch up with them. And I had a professional athlete with cancer that I worked with, and super fit, and on the outside I call it the Ferrari body, right? Perfect body. That doesn't mean your organs aren't suffering. If you don't have your genetics and your blood work, you don't know. And that's not meant to be a scare tactic, but early detection is as applicable in holistic healing as it is in the medical world. We all want to catch things early so that we can help you as early as possible.
Well, not only that, but if you get down to the core essence of why it's important, don't you want to live the most
Right.
joyful, abundant, full, free life that you can and feel better? For me, I started weightlifting and I'm really liking it.
I love
And,
weightlifting.
I incorporate walks in with my granddaughter. So I take her for exercise and then I get some exercise. And I, to my core, believe, and the research is really clear on this, that creativity
Yeah.
is a gateway to healing. And I don't care what kind of creativity path you choose, whether it be art or singing or dancing or crafting or cooking or gardening, anything that you can do that infuses that creativity in your life creates these new neural pathways in your brain and helps you heal and get on this pathway of freedom. Really, it's
Yeah,
radical freedom.
absolutely. I always say extraordinary health is the foundation of an extraordinary life, and you can't have an extraordinary impact without those two things falling into alignment as well. And you talk about the creativity, it goes back to the mindset. I always say, because I dance, I always say if everybody just danced, there would be no war. We would solve all the world's problems if we would all dance. And as a painter, you're probably like, if everybody would just paint, there would be no war.
Mhm.
These things bring peace, and our body needs it.
Yeah.
It needs it.
On a cellular level,
On a
it needs it.
cellular level, it
Yes.
needs it. It's not I always get, a little bit frustrated when these are electives at school and not
Yeah.
core subjects. This is more important than math, is having the ability to know how to express yourself and
Mhm.
work through your emotions. As I was mentioning before, the processing of emotions and how it takes some people longer than others. This is where I encourage people to have their families genetics. So I have my kids and my husband's and mine and my mom and dad's and my brother's. I keep it in a 3-ring binder. It's on my nightstand because I'm a nerd. And so at night I will get out and I'll just look through, because it's a lot to take in. So I don't have it like all of our DNA memorized, but I'll go, oh, this explains so much. And immediately off the bat, when I initially got it and I saw my youngest daughter's, she holds on to things longer than the rest of us. And it used to be, come on, we're all over it. You got to get over it. And now I go, babe, if you need a few more minutes in your room, you take those minutes. She's not being defiant.
Mhm.
She's just being biologically her.
Yeah.
And I love her for it.
I found that with my granddaughter. I'm doing like sight words and letters with her. And last night she was not having it. She was tired, grumpy.
Mhm.
So we put it off. And this morning, first thing, we got up. And what I noticed about her is that, and she can do it, but if she gets something wrong, she gets extremely frustrated.
Yes.
So I just have to keep encouraging her. That's part of getting better, is failing and
Yep.
keep trying. But, I wonder about her genetics as well. I'm sure there's some kind of deficiency in vitamin, protein, whatever, that might help her with that. So this is really interesting.
And it's interesting too that with these variants, and they used to be called mutations, but that's such a negative connotation because
Yeah.
all of us are unique because of our mutations, right? Otherwise, we'd all be the same person.
Yeah.
So our variations, when you have, for example, like you were mentioning, a vitamin or a mineral that you don't process correctly,
Mhm.
what some people don't understand, especially with things like depression, postpartum depression, right? A woman has a baby, her body has sucked the minerals out of her for this
Mhm.
process. These minerals are required for the development of neurochemicals that the serotonin, for example, 70% of serotonin is made in your gut. So you need a healthy gut biome. Healthy gut biome needs vitamins and minerals to feed the biome, develop the serotonin, and then you have the ability to express an emotion that uses serotonin. If
Mhm.
you don't have the ingredients for the chemical to be able to express the emotion, you don't get to have the emotion. Your body can't make it. So when people have wonderful lives, right? A brand new baby, or they're a famous millionaire and they're terribly depressed, is some of it can be, core beliefs that they need to work through, trauma. We're not discounting life experience, hugely
Right.
impactful, but we also can't ignore the other side of the coin that for some people, it's not this easy for everybody, but for some people, if they just took a mineral, just a
Mhm.
mineral once a day, a mineral supplement, that their emotions could be heightened and they could experience life through a clear and exciting lens versus this dull lens that they're pushing through all the time. So we have to
Mhm.
look at both sides of the coin.
Thanks for joining Julie and I today as we uncovered some really important aspects of healing. When it comes to genetics, you can't change it. And the only way to make your healing optimal is to find out what your genetics are saying. Her whole premise is based on the fact that as a child, she experienced some illness, and after genetic testing, now she is the best she can be. I do believe in therapeutic value of all the creativity and counseling, but you cannot dispute the importance of these genetic findings. So I will have her information in the comments for you to get a hold of her. I also have a free gift because I truly believe in the benefits of journaling. And with the release of our book, Julie and I are both in the book, Radical Freedom, I've created a free freedom journal that you can download and start your journey. Stay tuned for next week because Julie and I are going to get even deeper and see how this impacts you and your health so that you can be the best version of you that you can be.